We have just finished the two lore-based sets of questions that came out of the media tour in October, and we are now moving into technical questions. This will be a series of videos on technical things that were asked, with the first one being design-related questions. These are all from the media tour in October, so since then we've had a live letter and patch notes, so we in some ways have more information than them, and in others we don't. As well as keep in mind that some of these interviews, such as the Jesse Cox interview, I have it as Jesse Cox because it's on Jesse Cox's YouTube channel, that's where I saw it, but it does, some of these questions were their co-hosts, so he co-interviewed with JP, so it's a JP and Jesse interview together. Please go check out their actual interviews if you want the longer versions of the questions and the longer versions of the answers. I was trying to get this into one big thematic thing to make the questions and answers function as somewhat of a conversation, with this first technical one being about design-related questions that are a bit technical in nature. Gamerscape opening up with the first one at, were there any technical challenges that you overcame, you and the team overcame for Endwalker? Because, you know, in context, there were some technical things that they had to advance to be able to deliver us Shadowbringers. You can see my notes in front of me. I have typos and stuff all over the place. The answers are on my left side, and he says that unique for Endwalker, and I think some of the ways the visuals are depicted, we tried to implement elements of emotional aspects, conveying emotions through some of the visual aspects in Endwalker. How do you depict scenes once we're on the moon? And fundamentally speaking, what is the moon in Final Fantasy XIV? I'm pretty sure you're all going to be like, wait, what? Really? What? I'm hoping that is the effect. I'm hoping that people will get that. Gamerscape is then going to follow that up by saying, are there any other kind of big graphical or engine upgrades that you're looking into? HP says, I would ask you to hold off on that question for now. I can't answer that. Keep in mind that throughout this process, he is going to say that he plans on, after the launch of Endwalker, let's focus on getting Endwalker out the door first. Obviously, at the time of the interview questions, they didn't yet know that the expansion was delayed. Let's focus on getting Endwalker out the door first, and then I would love to sit down and have conversations about what we plan for the next 10 years. So, Fanbite is going to ask about controller versus keyboard. And that's going to be that players able to use controller as comfortably as a mouse and keyboard is something that he's emphasized on the team since ARR, and really kind of focusing on like how that's balanced. That question was received as like, how do you balance the way these different things play and design with that in mind? And Yoshi says that with the mouse and keyboard, you've got your Alt key and your Control key where you have additional buttons to press. With a gamepad, you have a limited number of buttons, and it does kind of limit how you configure the way you activate your skill rotations. So we do want to be mindful that when we're adjusting a job, for example, it still fits within the playability of gamepads. Intentions with changes are never to oversimplify rotations per se, but we do want it to be technical, and as players level up, we want them to have some sort of stimulation and feeling like they're adding more actions, but they do want to keep control schemes in mind. Dengeki, the hardest of the things to translate because it's a very conversational interview posted 100% from both sides in Japanese. There's no translator simplifying things down for me to distill for you. Says, but what's the main part that that evolved in development this time? And he says that he thinks that tanks changed quite a bit when you talk about things like reprisal, keeping in mind that they were having a conversation about trusts, the trust-based system, because they now know about things like Living Dead and all of that. So I imagine on the back end they had to get trust to work a little bit cleaner. He said that the trust-based, the Gambit system, the trust-based system, is also going to have support actions being used. And they might be able to use interject cleanly. And when the player uses Living Dead, the healers will actually heal you. So he does think that the Gambit system, the AI around the way the game works, is going to be getting smarter. So that's kind of cool. Zepla said that she does not remember anything in the media tour showing a new color theme that you have stated like you did for Shadowbringers. Where's our where's our color theme? And he said, well, let's take a look back at Shadowbringers. It was pretty simple. The world was flooded with light, so it was easy to understand. So with Endwalker, we decided on the color platinum. And the marketing and PR team said, what exactly is what do you mean by platinum? And he goes, well, it's not really easy to understand. The game's not going to have something that you recognize as like a color. So when you look at the moon and you see some yellow or something like that, there might be like a moment where it looks a little platinum. There's this moment and there's these times that I want to put emphasis on. It's a key word. It's something difficult to gauge. And you may play all the way through and see the credits roll. And some players may know and some players may not about what I mean by platinum. In the media tour, I actually had to hide the places that it would show to the players, but just know that it's there. Now, Annie, her interview was with Eduardo, and they asked about music. Which one comes first? This is a chicken and an egg type question here. Does the content get designed first, or does the music get designed first? And the answer is yes. The answer is that it depends. Sometimes we have a meeting about a patch or an expansion and we say, hey, who needs new music? And everybody says they do. So we get a big list and then Soken says, how could I possibly make that much? And we cut that list down. We end up asking, where can we use existing musics or newly arranged versions of existing music, which is a lot cheaper to kind of work down that list, and that cuts cost and saves time. But they do have some hard rules that every zone gets its own music. And so within zones, the MSQ writer sits down and tells the musical team and the graphic design team what the story of that zone is, what's happening there, what the theme is. And the graphics and the battle content, the music, the mechanics, all that's all done in parallel. So the design of a zone and the music for that zone are actually being worked on at the same time off of that initial theme. But in battle content, it's very different. In battle content, you have to ask, what happens when a boss has certain mechanics, like a form change? Does the music need to change? Does it need to set the scene for the timeline phase over phase? So background music is actually always made last. Soken is working to enhance the gaming experience with sound direction, and he does think that these design choices are why people love the music in this game so much. Now, Sly and Afro asked, would we see more things from ARR become required as we look at 6.0? Things like when we saw Crystal Tower become added. And would there ever be a time where ARR would be remade or reworked? Okay? This is a big, big question. Let's see. Reworked. Lost my spot. Future question. That's a good question there. Would we ever see more things from ARR, etc., become required? Required is the word. This is lovely, lovely, well organized. So Yoshi says that from Heavensward on, they're actually pretty satisfied with where things sit. But ARR was rushed. Remember, guys, ARR was built in 18 months. Trying to rebuild ARR would be expensive. And they really just haven't had the time to go back and do things with all of the knowledge and skills and talent that they have now. So the maps and the stories of ARR, we're not saying we don't like them, but that they could instead be even more fun. With ARR, we were going to do Ramu right after you go to Gridania, and we literally didn't have time, so we had to add it in a later patch. And so there are just things that we would love to go back and do something about. Doesn't mean they ever will, but he effectively said, like, I mean, yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome, but I don't know what's going to happen. And so based around that question, Jesse Cox asks like the perfect follow-up question to that. What is the plan moving forward for new players? Do they have to continue to start at the beginning, or will there be a new way in? There is a lot of existing content, so as you pile on more and more and more and more, how do you get new players to join this game if you have to ask them to clear 1,000 hours of content? Remember that the sprout symbol will not fall off until you've cleared 300 hours going into Endwalker, guys. So he says that, to be honest, he views the story of Final Fantasy XIV like a TV drama. This is the season finale and is the 5th season of this show. 6.1 will be a new first season. There are some emotional moments because you are the hero from all the way back in ARR. Now, considering it's only the 5th, it's a lot easier than if you're trying to do something like sum up all of Game of Thrones. He does want people to still enjoy MSQ, but when you mention like a story or a level skip, it's not a bad thing. It's going to cost you money, at least. We have New Game Plus to go back and see the old chapters. But if we keep, on the other side of it, if we keep making players do all of this, it's going to be arduous. And there's a lot of awkward areas that we'd love to go back and revisit. It's not that we don't like them, but we would adjust them. So we are aware of this, and we would probably be facing it sooner or later. Okay? So I don't think he's saying that with 6.1 or 7.0 it's going to be the new player for sure, but they are distinctly aware of this, and that they can't just keep kicking that and say, well, not now, but when, but not now, but when, but not now, but when. I think that people that have said 6.1 could be the on-ramp, keep in mind that the start of the story would have to not only be the start of the narrative portion, but it would also have to be the start of the mechanical version. So you're going to need a new Hall of the Novice. You're going to need a new intro quest that welcomes people to much more than just the lore, but what is a stack marker? What is the turn in the eye? When do I get behind a meteor? And so you're going to need to, there are all these things that the dungeons and instances over the years have taught us about how to play. And so it's not just about, we started telling a new story, so just start the new players there, and they don't get taught how to use their inventory, and they don't get taught how to attune to an aetheryte, and all these things. If they're going to do a new player experience, that's the beauty of what WoW did with Shadowlands by creating a new separate area, right? Setting aside the equivalent of like one of the shards and saying new players start there, and then they hop in with us. And so all of the things in addition to the narrative can be touched on with just basics. So yes, what is an Ascian? What is a Primal? But also, what is a relic, and what is a materia, and what is how do I attune to an aetheryte? Does hard mode mean anything? What is savage? All these things that we have learned through watching this game continue to grow and evolve. And so that's a very tough question that Jesse asked, and I think we got a lot of an answer there. And I look forward to seeing what that means as we get further into the game. But for now, let's just focus on Endwalker.